India has resumed flights to and from the United Kingdom amid new UK strain scare. There are SOPs in place for passengers coming from the United Kingdom. But why should it bother you, you ask? Well, this new strain is highly contagious. It's highly transmissible. It's not that deadly, but definitely very, very infectious. So every single step that the government takes at this moment will impact most of us. That is what we discuss. For your information, I am Arun Singh. We have a panel of experts also lined up for you. These are health experts and travel experts as well. But before that, bear with me for a few minutes as I form the base of our conversation. I'll take you through what the SOPs are, what is the current situation, and remember, SOPs are different depending on what state you land in. Let's first begin about what the UK-India flight situation is. So the resumption has happened on January 8th, but operations will be restricted till Jan 23. Now, what does the restriction really say? Well, that means there will be only 30 flights in a week, 15 each for UK and Indian carrier. Then there will be flights landing to and from Delhi, Mumbai, Bengaluru, Chennai and Hyderabad only. These are the airports where these flights will be operating. Now let's talk about SOPs, which I was talking about right in the beginning, which are very crucial at this moment because there are not many cases of this new strain, but every single step will be important. The umbrella SOPs, first let's talk about that, which have been laid out by the Health Ministry. So first, the self-declaration form has to be submitted by the passenger at least 72 hours ahead of travel. The negative RT-PCR test report as well. And once the passenger lands here in the country, a mandatory self-paid RT-PCR test will also be required. Passengers testing positive will be isolated in an institutional facility, and then passengers who test negative will be in a 14-day home quarantine. Contacts of passengers who test positive will also be in an institutional quarantine, but these are umbrella SOPs. Now, what has happened is different states have laid out their own SOPs, Delhi and Mumbai specifically. And because of these SOPs put in place at the last moment, there was chaos also seen at the Delhi airport on January 8th. First, let's talk about the national capital. Only what are the SOPs that the Delhi government has put in place? The first rule says 14-day institutional quarantine for passengers who test positive. Then 7-day institutional quarantine for passengers who test negative. So irrespective of what your test results are, you will be in an institutional quarantine. That has led to a confusion at the Delhi airport. And of course, even if a passenger has tested negative for COVID-19, they will have to be in home quarantine for 7 days after their institutional quarantine period has ended. Now let's quickly talk about Mumbai. Then there will be a 7-day institutional quarantine at a passenger's own cost. And if passenger is found symptomatic, they will be shifted directly to hospital. Then no RT-PCR test on arrival is what is very shocking. Why? Because they are saying RT-PCR test will be conducted on 5th to 7th day. Again, there will be a 7-day home quarantine if passenger tests negative. And lastly, extended institutional quarantine if passenger tests positive. Now, the situation is not only India specific, it's a global issue once again, which has come at the forefront after the world battled COVID-19. Now, there's a new strain which has actually giving birth to new challenges as well. So, as far as the ban is concerned, many countries had put this ban on UK flights. But countries which have lifted this ban are not many. India is one of those, though, which has, of course, started this, which has resumed flights from 8th of January. Remember, flights going to the UK had started on 6th of January, but flights coming from the UK have started on 8th of January. Then Norway lifted this ban on 2nd of January, Ireland on 6th of January. But there are a few countries which have extended this ban. France, for indefinite period, Spain till 19th of January, Germany till 20th of January. Now let's talk about this strain and our own country. There have been 82 cases till now of this new variant, which is also called the UK strain, the UK mutant. So there have been 82 cases. First case appeared on 29th of December 2020. And ICMR claims that India is the first country to successfully isolate and culture UK variant. So that's the update when it comes to the new mutant virus, the new variant of COVID-19. Well, we will be putting all of this to discussion with a panel of experts. We have Dr. Rajesh Jaria, physician and intensivist, Hinduja Hospital, Khar. And then we have Mr. Ankur Bhatia, Executive Director, Bird Group. He's also Chairman, Northern India Tourism Chapter. Dr. Vivek Nangia, Principal Director and Head, Respiratory Critical Care Medicine, Max Saket. Dr. Sushila Kataria, Senior Director, Internal Medicine Department, the Medicity, Medanta. So we have travel and health experts. So my first question would be to Dr. Sushil Kataria here. So considering the high transmissibility of this new variant, should we be concerned with flights resuming?
I think everybody is asking that question, but my answer might baffle many. I said it will not matter. It will not matter if our basics are correct. The mutation is the mutation is the nature of the virus. This is a virus. It has been detected in UK, but let us, let's be sure that this is present everywhere in other countries also. One. Secondly, it is not very seriously, it's not increasing the mortality. Thirdly, it's already there in India. So there could be a domestic transmission. We have only tested 82. There could be many thousand or many hundred at least, which are not detected. So restrictions are there just to pause and understand. Then one has to keep the basics correct so that we understand the problem and do it likewise. I mean, we cannot be stopping flights from every country because the virus has been detected.
Okay, let me quickly get an opinion from Dr. Rajesh Jaria as well. What do you think, sir?
Well, I can't help agreeing with her that we need to have the restrictions in place and we need to have all the precautions that we've been taking all this time. But one thought that I would like to put in is that when the COVID original virus started, no restrictions were in place at all. And travel was fairly free. And a little later, all countries woke up and they began to quarantine people and they began to isolate people. But almost no country was able to prevent the spread of the virus. So with this virus, which has a R0 factor, which is a little higher, spread is going to be much more. And so your quarantine facilities will have to be even more strong and even more rigorous. Now, if you look at China as a model, they managed to contain it only into Wuhan. How did they do that? If you look at scientific basis, they actually equipped everybody with electronic devices which ensured that anybody leaving the house would strike an alarm at a central spot where they could then be monitored. We don't have those kind of monitoring facilities here. So obviously our quarantine facilities will have to be far more rigorous than they were even in January 20 to July 20, when we had just started kind of,
So despite the R0 figure here higher, you are saying that, we can't really restrict it or we can't really put a full ban when it comes to the flights. Let me also get an opinion from Ankur Bhatia, who is a travel expert here on our panel. Definitely, there's a lot of money riding on these flights, and there was an economic stress already because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And now this resumption will bring relief to many airlines which are operating. Do you think there are economic reasons for this resumption, Mr. Bhatia?
Well, I think there are two things. One is there are definitely economic reasons, but there are people who are stuck in either of the countries. They need to get back. This was not planned. This ban was not planned. This was not that it happened literally in some time. So, of course, your people stuck in either of the countries, the students there, since the universities and the schools have been closed till the next term, end of February. So it is actually required for some people to come in. I think I would only say that we need to bear all precautions to ensure, as what the doctors before me said, to try to curtail that, if we are getting any of those any positive cases in the UK, we can do it. But yes, I mean, India-UK route particularly is one of the most traveled route in Europe as well. Of course, I mean, at a given time we had nearly 5, 7, maybe 8, 9 flights coming only from Delhi, and with other cities as well. And of course, a lot of people coming in from Middle East and other countries as well. So it's a very, very popular route for people to travel.
Before I go to Dr. Nangia, one quick question, Mr. Bhatia. You must be aware of the situation that happened at the Delhi airport, where on January 8th, this new SOP was put in place by the Delhi government, where they said there is institutional quarantine mandatory for every single person who's landing in the national capital. What would you say about that? Because on Twitter also, a lot of users are protesting against it. We had few guests here on NDTV also speaking about how they were in the middle of the flight and this SOP was put in place, leading to confusion and the situation that we saw at the Delhi airport.
Well, I mean, this is it is bound to happen. I think when we had the first lockdown, the SOPs also came in a bit later on. So there was a confusion at the airport, but I think this gets streamlined quite quickly. There are institutional quarantine places now available, and people were to travel. I think at this given time, because there's a lockdown in the UK, and I don't think that they would. I mean, people will only travel this route if it is bare necessary for them to either come home. I would guess to come home or come back to the family members. So I think that given that in keeping that in context. I think these things should get sorted out in the next couple of days.
Okay, Dr. Nangia, we've seen figures of COVID-19. It seems that India is doing better as the days are passing, as the time is progressing. But do you think this new strain, and especially this easing of these restrictions, will impact our curve here in the country?
Yeah, I think so, Arun. You're absolutely right. As we open up and as we allow more and more flights, not only from UK, actually, these days we're seeing a lot of patients coming back from Dubai who are turning out to be COVID positive. And I actually have a handful of them in the last 3-4 days only. And also this dip that we've been experiencing for the last a week, 10 days may not last very long, actually. We are only afraid and scared that it may just start surging all over again, because this waxing and waning has been a known phenomena with this virus. So also is mutation with most of these viruses. So we really can't bring the whole world to a standstill to be able to control this virus, because the virus will still keep spreading. It's just that we have to be prepared for it in every possible way. We have to keep our precautions on, wear the masks at all time, keep the hands clean, stay at a distance from people. Whoever is traveling back should be quarantining themselves, staying away from their family. And there has to be a responsibility. This has to be a kind of a responsible behavior towards the community and towards the people around them, rather than being, totally unresponsible and going back home straight and meeting with the families. Because ultimately, it's those who are elders, those who have some underlying diseases, who are suffering the most, as compared to the younger ones who are just asymptomatic,
but definitely no
or maybe
specific
mildly
precautions
symptomatic.
for this new strain.
Sorry?
No specific precautions against this new strain.
The same precautions, basically. As far as the precautions are concerned, it's the same precautions, the same treatment. There is no difference. Even the vaccination is set to cover this strain. So we don't need to worry about the strain per se. We just need to worry about the virus and the disease. And this disease is here to stay. Please remember that. So our precautions have to continue, and we cannot let our guard down at any stage.
Okay, before I go into a break, a quick word from Dr. Sushila Kataria. He mentioned about the vaccine. Of course, there are multiple experts which have been saying that most of the vaccines that we have at the moment can battle this new strain. But then we have a strain coming from South Africa as well. And a few experts in the UK have said that whatever vaccines we have at the moment can't really fight that strain. So there's this new debate which has started when it comes to the vaccination. What are your thoughts on that, Dr. Sushila?
Well, I am optimistic that the current vaccines, which have been programmed to be, used for this this wild type of COVID-19, would be effective against the new strain also, because it is not against a single kind of protein or antigen the immunity would develop. The immunity develops in multiple directions and facets, with antibodies, with B type and T type cells. So a virus may be little less effective, but it won't be totally useless. I think so. And if the vaccination can decrease the severity of the illness and makes less hospitalizations, makes it less easy to spread from one person to other person, I think it is still useful. It is still good.
This is FYI. We're discussing the resumption of India-UK flights. But why should you be concerned, or if at all you should be concerned or not? We have a panel of experts with us, and I want to resume the chat with Mr. Ankur Bhatia here. So there are a lot of passengers coming from the United Kingdom here in the national capital. We've been mentioning about the situation that happened at the Delhi airport, where there's a lot of confusion. But since this train is also being called the UK strain, and then you have multiple passengers coming now, do you think there is a bit of stigma also attached to here, as we had experienced right in the beginning as well, when COVID-19 pandemic had struck our country?
I think with anything, and because the way people come to know about it through news and TV channels and etc. I think there's I won't call it a stigma. I think people are extremely careful of interacting with people coming in out from the UK right now. The other issue which is also there, that the flights though are coming in directly from the UK right now. But anybody hypothetically can travel from the UK to Dubai and stay there for some time and then come to India as well. So there is definitely that risk, or was that risk in the previous 7, 8 or 10 days when the flights were not working. But I think people are very careful. I wouldn't say it a stigma. I think by the way the media has actually announced across the globe that there is a new strain which is coming in from the UK, I think it makes people more careful about this particular thing, so that the spread can be curtailed with that. And I think with the internet and television, I think on one side it's definitely helping. Yes, of course, there's a stigma against disease in any case, but while people are getting that disease and while people are getting it off and recovering from that as well, I think that is going down.
Okay, and of course we've been talking about how people who have some emergencies are traveling now, but what is the usual inflow and outflow of passengers if we talk about non-COVID situations or situations which were before this, let's say in Vande Bharat mission? What has been the inflow outflow of the passengers?
Right. So as I rightly said, I think India and UK particularly is a very, very important and a busy route. There are multiple flights, or there were multiple flights pre-COVID, more from Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore, Chennai, because of ethnic travel, because of business travel. London is being the center of the world, and coming in and out of that airport to connections and going abroad, going further up to the US. So this has been a very, very popular route. Now, of the number of flights which were there earlier, I think we have reduced down to, post-COVID level to less than 10% or even lower, with a couple of flights now just operating between the two cities. So I think there is definitely an effect. In terms of the number of passengers which are coming in, there's a definite effect. There's a definite effect in the economies of the airlines coming in as well.
Okay, a quick question for Dr. Jaria here. There are reports of children more vulnerable to this new variant. Are there any reports to suggest?
Those reports have come in from the UK, where they have had quite a few children who have been falling prey to this condition. That's true.
Okay. Okay. And there are no SOPs in place when it comes to flight operations to South Africa. So, Dr. Nangia, should we be scared or bothered about that as well, or should we expect a decision on that as well? A last quick question from you.
Yeah, I think so. I think there has to be a decision on all the countries. Why only South Africa and UK? Because there could be people carrying this virus from all over the world. So I think it has to be a mandatory policy that anybody coming from abroad should actually be self-quarantining, either institutional or at home, for at least a week, 10 days before they can come out.
Okay.
I think there has to be made a mandatory kind of a rule for everybody all across.
Great point made there. I'm afraid we've run out of time, but yes, that's how we would like to conclude it. That, this